गजाननं भूतगणादिसेवितं कपितजम्बूफलसारभक्षितम् उमासुतं शोकविनाशकारणं नमामि विघ्नेश्वरपादपङ्कजं शदाननां कुङ्कुमरक्तवर्णं महामतिं दिव्यमयूरवाहनं रुद्रस्य सूनुं सरसैन्यनाथं गुहं सदाहं शरणं प्रपद्ये या कुन्दन्तु तुषारहालधवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रावृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युतशङ्करप्रभृतिभिः देवैः सदा पूजिता सा मम पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेषजाध्यापः ॐ नमः शिवाय गुरवे सच्चिदानन्दमूर्तये निष्प्रम्भजाय शान्ताय श्रीशिवानन्दाय ते नमः श्रीविष्णुदेवानन्दाय ते नमः ॐ सर्वमङ्गलमाङ्गल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थसाधिके शरण्ये त्र्यम्बके गौरी नारायणि नमोस्तुते नारायणि नमोस्तुते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ पीस 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 बोल सद्गुरु शिवान महाराज की जय बोल श्री विष्णुदेवान महाराज की जय Good evening. Om Namah Shivaya. I welcome you tonight to the talk called Facing Challenges, the Spiritual Alchemy. As usual, when I have a webinar that consists of two parts, I tend to concentrate first on some general principles, and then in the second class we go to some more detailed approach to, in this case, facing challenges and difficulties. Thank you for choosing to be with me tonight. I think this subject is absolutely important, and it's kind of a subject that nobody teaches us in the schools. We do not get this in the universities. After all, facing the challenges is really the essence of the spiritual path, since the challenges are part of our path. And we need just a few principles in life, and if we can hold on to them and keep practicing them until we become masters of it, we'll find that ultimately we'll make the life that we often fear in this kind of circumstances, when things appear as challenges and they last sometimes for a long time, we'll make them work for us. That's the whole idea of this workshop. So one of the greatest illusions that we experience, and probably the most difficult to really rise above, is the expectation, which we all normally have, that the life should be free from obstacles and challenges. I must say one thing, even though we know that life introduces different challenges, in fact, it doesn't matter what you do, even if you're doing something every single day, the life always is afresh and new, bringing a new situation, perhaps the one that you haven't been aware of before, and so you always experience new things. And even though it's easy to accept intellectually that life will bring certain challenges to us, emotionally it's hard to really accept it. In our hearts of hearts, we resist this, and we will see why we do that. So the life naturally will not be free from problems. In fact, Swami Shivananda would say life is full of problems. And as you're striving very best to solve one, another one crops up. And as you solve the second one, the third one crops up. You know, this reminds me very much on the situation here in New York City, where I always hope that one of the scaffoldings will be finally taken down after being there for about two and a half years, only to find that the building next to that scaffolding that went down suddenly has a scaffolding being put up. So similarly, just as the scaffolding never ends in New York City, so the challenging situations never end in a life truly of a true spiritual aspirant. So we need perhaps a different kind of a way to look at them, and also to kind of remove this expectation that the life has to necessarily serve us and with pleasures and comfortable things all the time. Because if we do not remove this expectation, we will obviously we will suffer, and not just that, we will have fear as a result of it. And naturally there will be many different emotions arising, and we will simply overreact emotionally without any training. Okay, so we live in a hope, of course, that we will reach such a stage which is really peaceful, harmonious, that there's no conflict, that we find some security and all that. And I think in a relative world, it's okay to work towards that. We just have to remember that this relative world is not exactly the absolute. And so I would like to try to answer this question. If there is such a place, is there is such an experience in which we are free from all this strife, the suffering that this strife brings? Of course, there is a state. In fact, what we find that our true nature is something that continuously filters down and reflects in a form of a light in this life of matter, and we are continuously trying to relive in the matter that who we are in the spirit. So of course this realm has its own name in the teachings, and especially in Vedanta it's called Satchidananda. So that is the realm of the infinite or absolute existence, absolute knowledge, and absolute bliss. So these three things is who we really are. Now, for whatever reasons, we're not going to go into it tonight, we've forgotten. We have no even knowledge or awareness of that, and so we need the spiritual teaching to bring this truth back to our hearts. So back home. So there is within us something which is the ultimate, the absolute, the Godhead, if you would like, that is within us, and then we want to return to, because it is that place which is full of the harmony and all these other things that we cannot really find in a relative world of change. So that's the idea. So that reflection of the supreme consciousness, which is what we are, the little God within us, as it were, is continuously, as I said, reflecting in all our activities and experiences. And so it also creates a confusion, because on one side there's that absolute calmness, and then there's that tremendous conflict that naturally life brings to us. So this is what we're going to try to re-experience through the spiritual teachings. And so why we're actually seeking for peace and bliss, even in this relative world of change, is because we're really trying to reaffirm our true nature, and we're trying to express it and manifest. We cannot stop it at all. As much as you may say, well, accept everything, something within you will not accept it as long as you don't have that experience of the absolute bliss. So basically, our daily struggle proceeds from this urge to try to approximate that which we, in our absolute nature, we will try to approximate in this life that we're living here. So, in fact, not just try to live it like that, but we're trying to also increase it naturally. So we have to remember one thing, that this life of change is such that this relative universe that we live in, it really is in a constant flux. Everything in this creation is conditioned by space, time, we call it causation. This relative world is simply another word for change. Now, change is another word for action, and action is another word for karma. And karma also is another word for a will that is used, that has been used in a certain way. So this relative universe is conditioned, obviously, by the law of change itself, where everything not just changes, but also everything that changes is at the same time witnessed by this wonderful silent spectator within our hearts. Yeah, we could call that, again, consciousness or God. So let us just remember that this needs to be clarified again and again in our lives, is to try to not fall asleep to the fact that every sentient being, every living being is bound to go through some pretty hard changes in their life. And we're going to have to accept this. We'll come to it a little later on, what it means, but for now, let us just for a moment clarify this point. Let's say you and me were good people. Let's say. My wish and your wish is to help others, to nurture them, do wonderful things for them. And in your own heart, I believe that each one of us has love for God, for justice, for law, for truth, for love. Right? So this certainly makes both of us very exceptional, and perhaps above many beings on this planet Earth, especially those who are busy destroying the nature and everything else that we find today. And so, of course, life is not, static. Every 12 years, as we know, we experience the major changes in physical body, emotionally. Everything is changing, and we trying to adapt to it. And partly, with these changes outside are equally important because they're part of the inner changes within us. In fact, they're one and the same. But here is the problem. Each one of us, because of who we are and what we're striving to develop and who we're striving to be in this life, we feel, believe it or not, entitled. And at least to some degree, by the dint of our practice and our choices that we made to grow in a direction of light, we feel that we should be protected, more protected than other people, from accidents, diseases, and all things that everybody goes through, right? So this is where we're wrong, and we must clear that right away. You see, while the spiritual teachings are truly amazing, they open and widen our horizons of understanding, of experience, of bliss, and wonderful insights. While they're doing all that, and they at the same time giving us the knowledge, giving us the methods how to deal with different things, the one thing they don't do is that they do not protect us from hardships. I myself have lived a life of a dreamer, thinking that, I'm a monk, I'm sitting here, I'm teaching, whatever. I lived the way that I lived, thinking that all the common problems that common people have should have left me, because I want to live for God, I want to live for others, I want to give up myself and everything. So things such as, dramas that ordinary people have should not be part of my life. I don't want that, and I think I deserve it. I never said I'm entitled, but I think that we as spiritual people would believe that somehow choosing the path of light is a pure entitlement. Not that we really ask for it initially, but somehow we are hoping in our hearts of hearts that that's the case. So what happens, and what may happen, is that we get dazed, and surprised when difficulties spring up in our life, and we have to deal with the same challenges as our other brothers and sisters who are not necessarily on a spiritual path. See, just because we have chosen to follow the path of right, light, and righteousness, we simply imagine that all our obstacles will be clear. But interesting enough, some of our obstacles increase also, because we see we're given a gift of methods how to deal with your mind. And until we master our mind, we cannot master any of the obstacles. So every obstacle, every challenge in life is an opportunity to master the mind. But we need to have a method, we need to have a teacher, we need to have some ways, something shown to us how to really do it. Otherwise, if we allow ourselves to be lulled by this expectation that we should be free of problems because I do my meditation every day, I do my asanas or whatever, well, what happens is that you may become weak and vulnerable much more than other people. And it is that weakness and vulnerability which is what Arjuna experienced in a different kind of a way, but in the Bhagavad Gita, for those of you who studied that scripture. And then what happens when you become weak and vulnerable, not just that you're not able to rise above the challenge, but also you start to maybe perhaps blame somebody else. And then you think, well, that person was the main influence and the reason why I have become weak, why I think of my conditions of life in this kind of way. You know, maybe we name a person, maybe we do not name the person, but nevertheless we hold somebody else responsible for our life. So this may end up, collapsing and under the pressure. And so this is why we need to remove this illusion first. Everything that takes place in this creation will happen within this body. Of course, you can take the measures to protect yourself from diseases and accidents and everything, but ultimately everybody has to experience the same thing. One is the weakening of the system, disease, death, and other things that we know. So in a way, a life of a spiritual seeker is that of a spiritual warrior. I love this idea that a spiritual path is the path of a peaceful warrior, not somebody who is aggressive and always using just a macho kind of a way of dealing with problems, but somebody who is equally deeply vulnerable inside and who knows how to combine this kind of a yin and yang on this path, right? So what I would say in simple words, accept the worst and hope for the best. This is a good attitude, right? Accept things and accept everything that takes place and be committed to cultivating fearlessness. Now, of course, fearlessness is it's an effect of somebody who is living in truth and love. If you live outside of love and truth, you cannot be fearless. So the fearlessness is the very core of every religion, true religion, of every spiritual path. Or whether you lead a spiritual path or not, it really, in a conventional kind of way, it's okay, it doesn't matter. But the essence of every tradition should be fearlessness. Okay, so the true fearlessness, as far as I remember from seeing my Guru, Swami Prem and being around him for a little while, I remember that amazing emanation or vibration of the fearlessness. But it wasn't coming from somebody who was a macho person. It was coming from somebody who was identified with the spirit or his Atma. So the true fearlessness will be the end. It's a path in itself, but it will be end. It will manifest in your realization of your true self. So what to expect, in simple words, everything. Change, breakups, maybe not in your life, somebody else's life, betrayals, divorces, abandonments, anything, disease and death. All these things will come. But they are the best. They're silent and the best teachers. They have their own important place, and because they're teachers, every experience is a teacher. We must bow down to the experience. However terrible experience we might have had, and however long that experience might have been there in our life, we must bow down to it respectfully and understand that this is a message from life itself. It is a message it is a message of a hope and awakening. Something was slumbering in me for such a long time, and here this comes and, happens. Okay, so all these things we need to respect, because every one of the things that I said, the betrayal, the disease and everything, truly is equally a language of life, in the same way as joy is a language of life, laughter is language of life, hope, and all these things. So the language of life is complex, and we tend to only concentrate on certain letters, maybe bigger or nicer or whatever. So we need to learn to accept all these things. Now, of course, train yourself to be able to become tougher in a sense. Give yourself a little bit of a Navy SEAL training in a spiritual sense. And so I would say we need to strengthen ourselves on many levels in order to be able to ride through these experiences as they come. Some of that training may involve what I call a Yin Metas and some Yang Metas. I'm not the master of this, but kind of use it in a sense that that's how I understand it. The Yin method would be at times you have to accept an experience, bow down to the experience, ask the experience what is it that is ultimately trying to teach you. Perhaps some breathing as a part of it, nurturing, all that is yin. And then the yang comes the application of the will and a true tapas in a sense. So this is what we're trying to recognize here. Remember, this talk today, it's primarily just focused on principles. We're not yet talking about anything that is completely specific to anything. But as always, I like to emphasize that the first principle, and that is that we're trying to become spiritual warriors. We're learning how to become ready. Okay, so not to be taken by surprise, but remember to train yourself to cultivate the awareness in all moments of your life. Now, the life is truly meant to ultimately disappoint us, disenchant us. Yeah, it's initially the life attracts, and that's important. If the life didn't attract us, we would not be making any efforts or anything. But then again, also the life is supposed to disappoint you because you would never move higher up if there wasn't some kind of a disappointment. It's just a strange system, but this is how India teaches us. So therefore, be a warrior. Now, to be a warrior, we must learn to be alert and aware, so that this practice of cultivating the awareness must be really there all day long. Discipline, diary keeping, all these things should be together. So the discipline and the awareness are your protection on this path. People are often asleep. I would think psychologically they're asleep. They think, well, okay, we can easily be identified with any kind of a sleepiness in that sense and forget our true nature or what we're striving for or whatever it is important that we should remember, right? So if you leave sleeping and you're going to be taken off guard by surprise when something arises and it certainly doesn't correspond to your expectations. So that's the first thing, to keep that alertness level, just like a soldier, right? To be always ready for an action or lack of action if necessary. So this alertness can be cultivated in a couple of ways. One is that obviously in each moment of this life we're making a choice, either between making a step towards our real self, which is the self of all. Either we make a step in a direction of love and protection of others and caring for others towards the realization of our goals, or we take a step and we fall back, we slide backwards. So this is a typical situation. Our life is nothing but choice, but we don't make use of it. And that's exactly where the sleepiness comes from. The sleepiness is what we may call here Maya. For example, sometimes you may have a negative habit, a weakness, and you think, okay, I see that it's bothering me, but I still take pleasure in it, and so I will stop doing this or stop talking like this tomorrow, right? We always leave something for tomorrow. Why? Because I'm not ready today. I need something more. I need a more discrimination. I need more of this, more of that. What the thing is, how we must learn to think is that you are ready. I am ready. So this is what being alert or vigilant means. If you, for whatever reason, say tomorrow is the time for change, then tomorrow would shift to another tomorrow, right? Because tomorrow you would say again tomorrow. We know that it doesn't work. So we have to become and remain vigilant. And so not just to be obviously taken away or carried away by some negative thought or action or belief that we may have in us in any single moment, but also to use this alertness in a way that every experience could be like a springboard for an attainment of a higher perception, higher discrimination, more wisdom, more love, whatever that is. Every experience is a springboard, but you can use the springboard to kind of jump down the hill someplace or over the cliff, or you can use the springboard to jump higher up. We know that. And that's really the springboard is just another word for choice. Now the choice, again, even though it appears to be very kind of innocent and it's easy, I just have to pick one way or the other, of course, it includes a certain fight. And that fight is a part of the spiritual life. We know that making choices is not always easy, because what we would like to be like a choice, it manifests all of a sudden as a power of a certain predetermined thing, such as a habit, and on the other side something new that we want to do or get rid of it. So there is always a conflict there. But don't worry about that, because this conflict is okay, it's necessary. To have a conflict in terms of wanting to grow in some direction, it's actually a good conflict. Not all conflicts are good, but this conflict is a wonderful thing where you're not satisfied with where you are, and you know you have still a long way to go, but you're ready to embrace the journey. This is an important step. So it's the practice really that matters the most. So being alert is, again, means on one side not letting yourself be pulled into the kind of atmosphere of negative thinking, worrying, and all that, which also requires some training. And on the other hand, is not to really allow to be losing an opportunity to develop your willpower, or perhaps some kind of a new skill in managing your mind. And basically, we have to become strong enough to not be crushed by life circumstances, and they're going to be putting pressure on you and me and everybody else. So an alert or vigilant mind is able to accomplish in a few days what a non-alert mind will take months. This is important. So your growth will increase when you start to really commit to working with your mind. This is all leading us into working and facing challenges. So if you raise your level of practice, your awareness, you can change every circumstance into real opportunity for your growth. Now, this is a matter, as I said, of practice, and specifically of re-educating our willpower. Do remember that whatever path we take, we have tamas, rajas, and sattva. Whether we take a path of light or darkness or sattva, right, of light, we face challenges. And of course, not necessarily the same. They're not the same challenges, but we have no escape. The challenges will come. It is Swami Vishnu used to say, when you start to do the practice, that's where the obstacles are going to arise. He used to say that, going and swimming downhill is not a big deal. You will feel no challenge, nothing. Suppose, let yourself indulge in something you love, an ice cream, or I'm not recommending anything worse than that, or chocolate, and it feels so easy. There's no obstacles. You just want to be permanently that ice cream kind of a state of bliss, right? But say to your mind, from today onwards, or even for just 1 week or one day, no ice cream. Then you're going to learn about what it is swimming uphill. You see, the life circumstances are not really the problem, the challenges, the disease, any of these things. If you have trained your mind sufficiently to deal even with a single desire that is negative, and you're dealing with any kind of problem in a systematic way like this. So you have to utilize your time now when you're healthy, when you're young, when you're inspired, to work with your mind and say no to negative things and yes to wonderful things, and you apply your will. Try to do this when you're older. You will find it's more challenging. The body is not accommodating, your needs to exercise or practice. Problems are from all over, from children to parents to this and that. So take the moment, first of all, to work as if you are, and as you're young. Young means whatever the usefulness is for you. And another important thing is open up that morning to your spiritual practices. And the earlier you can wake up, the better. And if you're a perfect sleeper, you should be up at 4 o'clock. And this is a time for transforming your life. Then you will have no problem facing any challenges. But we need some training. We need something like that. So your own sadhana, your spiritual practice, is going to be the light that you can help you see through all these times. Yeah. So when you get to the stage when every person you meet, every opportunity you experience, you encounter, literally every however small incident, you get to that stage when you see each one of these little things as instruments in your own awakening, then you will become a real spiritual aspirant. Spiritual aspirant is somebody who works all the time with their mind. So you cannot be a spiritual aspirant if you simply wake up in the morning and do something, and sometimes in the evening. Your whole day is one of that adoration of the Supreme in the form of your practices of awareness, giving love, giving time, whatever it is, whatever your spiritual practice is. But it's got to be done gradually. It's got to be made into a daily, all day long practice. So when you do this, when you're able to turn every challenge into an opportunity, right, then you're going to rise higher and higher and higher, and you will then become, and hopefully remain, an eternal student, a keen observer, right, and an inspired person. Not just to inspire yourself alone, you're going to inspire everybody who comes in contact with you. And our life should be a commitment to inspiring others. Then when the time comes that we ourselves have to face challenges, we'll have some strength to fall back on. So this is the idea, that every opportunity for, let's say, for getting angry is that you practice patience. Every time there's a red light when you're driving, you practice patience, you practice something like that. So this is important. So to conclude with the general principles, I would like to concentrate a few more minutes on the illusions of life that you have to become aware of, and try to, in some ways, eliminate them through your power of discrimination. And that's this one. To not think that if this thing did not happen or hadn't happened, I would have had a perfect life. Many people think that way. If my mother was better, if my husband was better, whatever it is, I would have had a perfect life. Okay, so illusion number one, cross this expectation. Another one is that I have been unfairly treated, and I feel that I've been victimized by a particular person. Cross that out too. Neither unfairness, know that you're good, too good, that certain things you should not experience. This is actually helpful, right? We have to think that the life is perfectly mathematically correct. How could you think that things take place in life and you think that they're happening for a reason, And then when they happen to you, you think, oh, somebody's made a mistake. No, all things happen exactly for a reason, when they need to happen. And there's a perfect precision in life we have to admire that really comes from this cosmic intelligence. So that's the idea. This universe has not been created, not it continues to be sustained on the principle of is not sustained on the principle of some capriciousness, right? Everything is orderly. And therefore, this idea that I was and I am a victim of this and that has to be gradually eliminated. So here comes an important commitment. I will take care of my life. I'll make a commitment that I don't blame anybody. Don't blame yourself either. You just think of the positive steps you can make. Blaming business that has never benefited anybody and has never been beneficial to a single person. So yes, you may use the word regret and say, okay, I made a mistake. Why regret? Because regret means that I'm now ready to make a positive step in the direction of my peace, happiness, whatever it is. This blaming is very, very dangerous. So my suggestion is this, that to understand that blaming others ultimately falls back on blaming ourselves, and all condemnation of others is in the end is a condemnation of oneself. So you have to understand the others were a part of that wonderful matrix of life, and whatever took place in our life, okay, this is what it is. So write a little list of people that you think they're responsible for your negative thinking or negative action or whatever. Write a list of those people who've contributed to you becoming angry, fearful, whatever. And then what I would suggest is you write on a piece of paper or give them all. Or another thing to do is to just say, I forgive you all, and you tear the paper and you maybe throw it into the fire and let it burn. So this is the idea. Say to yourself, I'm taking the life in my hands. Now, taking life in my hands doesn't need you should just let yourself be open up only to the caprices of your own negative mind. Now, if the mind is negative, it needs help, it needs help. Arjuna, when he was in the Gita experiencing difficult times, he had Lord Krishna on his side. So therefore, in our spiritual life, we must try our best to embrace and invoke, make them palpable and manifest the forces of light. We need to know how to do this. But I would say ultimately, yes, I'm taking life in my hands. I'm taking responsibility for our experiences now, and I want to learn to be fearless. The only religion, as I said, is that of fearlessness. So let us concentrate on that. Now, of course, when we're dealing with challenges, there will be emotions, there will be memories. You're not to repress these. The memories may be there. What you try to do is to decide to think about these experiences as memories in a different way, in a more creative way. Allow yourself to be creative. Use your imagination and your power of logic and everything to say, well, I can think of this condition in a different way. See, today, millions of people are attracted and destroyed by the powers of lust, powers of power, the untruth and everything. Does any of these people who may have PhDs and everything, do they ever think, well, there's this temptation, there's this desire, there's this negativity in my mind after all. Is there another way to approach this? This is my suggestion to you, that you exercise your ability to think of your problems from different angles, as if you were already able to solve it by approaching it in a different way. So what you're trying to do is to not let these memories of negative experiences color your life. You're trying to make sure that they do not define your life. Okay, they're not controlling your life. They're there. They happened. You know, you had a problem with your mother, you had a problem with your father, you had a problem with everybody. Okay, but these things must not control our life. Now, this is easier said than done. I know that. But first of all, we will do that. And we want to, this way, become our own maker. So I'll take the direction of life that I feel I should take, not what other people should feel that I should take. I want to be independent here. I have right to it. And I value all my experiences as a result of it. Naturally, there will be time when you need to feel the pain of something that comes in your life. It's okay. Then we will see what we can do in those moments. The third illusion that comes useful to contemplate about is the illusion of not being ready. Okay. Who is ever really ready for any kind of unknown circumstance of, negative, specific, a challenge, or difficult person in my life? There's no such a thing. So we should say, regardless of whether we're ready or not, we always think I need a little more time, right? I need to get better at this. I need to comprehend this. Don't think that way. Don't wait for the waves to calm down before you take a dip in the ocean. This is not going to happen. Go into the ocean, provided the waves are not too high. You comfortably can take a dip, refresh yourself, and you will learn lots of things about the ocean. Similarly, like this, we can just say, I am ready, bring it on. Whenever the experience comes, you should just say, well, I have been waiting for you. In fact, I know that there's an equivalent amount of strength and love and wisdom and patience in my heart, in my mind, to be dealing with you. And I know that each one of these things may be somehow are still slumbering in my being. So perhaps you have come to help me awaken these powers in me. So this is how we need to think. And then an approach to another important thing is that we must learn to, I'm working from outside in, so next time we'll talk more on the inner side. We must learn that the world is our friend, and the life experiences are there to help us. Therefore, they're there for us. So the world is a friend in the sense that it acts as a reflector. It always reflects whatever we are. If there is a strength, then something in the world will reflect that particular quality. It's like the world is like a huge prism, and it just takes on whatever quality is us. So if there is a weakness, the world will reflect it. It will bring some people that will start to feel fear in their presence or experiences like that. And the world, which is nothing but life, will say, listen, now it's time for you to manifest your true strength. But I'm just going to give you some kind of a field of exercise. I'm going to give you like a basketball, and I'm going to give you this, and all you have to do is just practice. So this is kind of how we need to look at it. Both our strengths and our weaknesses are reflected by the same world, and this is why we have to, if we're able to do this, we're going to be able to read the signs. We were going to read the omens. How the people used to do it. They would say, the world, the universe is sending me this sign, so this is what I have to do. If the greater pressure is outside, you have to strengthen more yourself from inside, because you cannot necessarily just fix all the things outside and hope everything will be fine. Every challenge is an invitation for a new level of strengthening ourselves from inside. And remember, all challenges that we experience, they have their own mathematics behind. The mathematics are within a domain of karma. We cannot even access that. And so the measure of our difficulties and our challenges is always the measure of, initially, of our weakness, but then at the end of our strength, which is missing somewhere. It has been undeveloped or lost. So these are the things that are going to eventually come to us. So the actual challenges, even though they manifest outside, are truly within us. Therefore, when you recognize the weaknesses in yourself, the next step to do is to must put them to work. This is strange, right? Has anybody ever thought, I'll put this anger of mine to work for me. When all you want to do is just get rid of anger and never have it, or when it does serve some purpose, you're just gonna, express it. Every negative emotion, and you will see next time we'll discuss this, how to work with this, but just anger, fear, lust, jealousy, all these things. Everyone has these things. They're universal qualities. Well, every one of these things have to be put to work for us. They're simply a form of energies. They're in our service. They're available to us, but we need to know what to do with this. So next time, we'll continue with the story of how to face challenges with more specific practices. Today, as I said, we were covering mainly some principles, and I hope you enjoyed this talk today. Always say 3 ohms. Om, Om, Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Bol Sadguru Shivan Maharaj ki jai. Bol Shri Vishnu Devan Maharaj ki jai. Thank you.